Hi, hello everybody, this is Agent Fires bringing you another video covering Destiny Rising. Today in particular, I wanted to talk about the artifacts. This is the main gearing system outside of the weapons that you're able to obtain and leveling up your relic. Now, these artifacts are divided into two types. You've got the Tenacious artifacts, which are the defensive ones, and you have the Sharp artifacts, which are more offensive ones. The main issue I'm finding with this is that there are way too many sets, and too many sets that have very, very similar effects. Pretty much every single Tenacious Calyx just gives you damage resistance in a different way. You have damage resistance for enemies in melee range, you have damage resistance for enemies that are far away, you have damage resistance if you're jumping in air, you have damage resistance for standing still, so on and so forth. They also provide some additional effects with the Force set, in particular jump protection, which gives you a burst of healing if you're at low health and take damage while in mid-air. Most of these are just not great. The type of damage resistance that they give is way too niche, or the effect percentage is just way too low. Generally, I'm finding these defensive artifacts to be rather boring to interact with. The Sharp Calyxes are more interesting, but only because they give you increased damage to your abilities and weapons. However, there is way too many of these different sets, 22 in total, and most of them provide extremely similar or niche effects, most of the time just giving you passive damage boosts to very, very specific abilities. A particularly egregious example of the bloat is with the healing sets, of which there are 5, and all of them essentially just giving different hyper-specific healing boosts, but some give healing boosts when healing allies on low health, or give healing boosts specifically to health over time, or one of these gives damage resistance, and one of these, and I believe this one's a damage increase on healing. However, the wording of these sets is pretty poor, making them difficult to read. Additionally, there are 2 artifact sets in the Sharp Calyx session, which give more defensive effects like Unrelenting Enhancement and Tenacity Enhancement. Both of these would be pretty good as Tenacious Calyxes, however they were put into the Sharp Calyx, essentially just making them completely useless instead of just stacking more damage onto your character. And ultimately that's what makes this so boring. Most of these artifact sets just give increased damage and nothing else. Very few of them, some good examples being the weapon type masteries, give special boosts to their weapons, like Impact Mastery giving you rounds refunded to the magazine from reserves, or Spread Mastery increasing the blast radius of your explosive weapons. However, there aren't enough of these different effects to really be satisfying, and with them being so limited to their application, makes them a lot less interesting to build around. However, this gets worse as we delve deeper into the artifact system. As some of the more observant viewers may have seen, the set effects listed have additional bonuses when certain attribute levels are 8 or higher, or 12 or higher for the 4 sets. Now, these attributes are where a lot more of the RNG goes into play for this system. Each individual artifact will have a random selection of these attributes, most of which being general bonuses towards a particular type of damage or a particular ability damage. And this causes further issues because sometimes these effects are suboptimal on the characters that you want this set on. For instance, Spread Mastery is really good on Wolf because most of his damage comes from his grenade launcher. However, in order to increase the effectiveness of Spread Mastery, you need to increase skill strength, which is not optimal on Wolf because Wolf's individual skills do not deal very much damage. And simply leveling up the arc damage boost attribute would be much more effective. However, this arbitrarily lowers the power level of your character because they have coded it so that recommended attributes contribute significantly towards the listed power of your character, which can lock you out of activities, punishing you for playing the character optimally rather than the way that they intended you to play them. However, the RNG for these artifacts does not end at the attributes. Leveling the attributes past their initial strength is an even bigger nightmare, because in order to level an attribute, you have to consume an artifact that has similar attributes, and this then gives you a chance to then upgrade the attributes of the artifact that you actually want to use. What makes this even worse is that not only is it a chance to level up any of these attributes, it is a percent chance to actually level up the attribute that you want, which means that I could select this artifact, feed it into the current artifact that I have, trying to increase arc boost, but instead increase support boost or solar boost, lowering the total arc boost that I can actually have on my character, because you can only level up an artifact so many times. Further contributing to the terrible RNG of this system are the exotic artifacts. Thankfully, you can only have one of these equipped, but these exotic artifacts are significantly more rare than any of the other artifacts artifacts you're able to obtain, meaning that you get less of them, and they're still susceptible to the same exact attribute RNG as the rest of the artifacts, which means you have to actually obtain an exotic artifact in the first place, obtain it on the set that you want, with the attributes that you want, and then you have to get an exotic ability that's actually good for the character that you're trying to equip. Because some exotic abilities just won't be good for a character, and even more, some abilities can't even be activated by certain characters. There are some characters that just can't deal precision damage, which means this mobility enhancement just wouldn't be useful for them. Before somebody in the comments says that this gearing system is typical for gachas, that doesn't mean it's good, and it especially doesn't mean that it's good for a game that's more similar to Destiny than it is to Genshin Impact. Now, I do like the idea of set bonuses. I do think that is good, even though most of the sets need to either be removed or significantly reworked. However, what I would much rather see are artifact perks, more similar to armor perks from Destiny 2, or the weapon perks that we have in both games. So instead of getting a random set of different attributes that mostly just increase damage and do nothing else, we could get perks that increase your weapon's handling, increase your movement speed, or even have synergistic systems like the armor charge in Destiny 2. However, even with that, I do believe that there needs to be significant changes to the way that exotics were implemented. I think that the current exotic traits, while strong, are rather boring and uninteractive. Most of them just give stat bonuses and aren't really different from the set effects. What I would like to see is another slot specifically for exotics, removing exotics from artifact sets and making them their own unique thing, providing more powerful and game-changing effects, much like the beloved exotic armors in Destiny 2. That's really all of my thoughts on the artifact system. I'm still really enjoying playing Destiny Rising and covering this game. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Leave a like, but only if you actually liked the video. Subscribe for more content, and I will see you next time.